been out of the system long enough, you like can look into the system from an outside perspective and be like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Either the legislators didn't know what they were doing, right? Or they knew what they were doing and they don't want people to ride e-bikes, right? I wager Jersey has a lot more urban areas, right? You got Jersey City, you got Hoboken, which I lived in for a while, Newark. There's a lot of areas where you can get by with just e-biking, and I'm sure there's a lot of people living there who don't have a driver's license that want to get around with an e-bike, and now they have to legally get a driver's license, and they have to register with the DMV, right? So they have to register as a motorized vehicle.
On January 19th, 2026, New Jersey's outgoing governor, Phil Murphy, on his last day in office, signed into law what is still today the most restrictive e-bike legislation in the United States. Under the law, every e-bike operator must obtain a driver's or motorized bicycle license, annual registration, and liability insurance. Riders will need a license plate, must be over the age of 15, and it applies even to those bikes that are off-road only, like e-mountain bikes or e-dirt bikes. This legislation is confusing, prohibitive, and targets e-bikes that were not the source of the safety issues that were stemming from emotos. Instead, it places undue burden and financial restraints on e-bikes that have been legal as is up to this point.
So there's all these restrictions are being advertised as being for people's safety. A lot of like safety. It's like keeping these like dangerous bikes off the street, and they're legislating them, and everything's going to be like safer. And now you're going to have insurance for your bike, and you're going to have. It's not just really limiting the e-bike as its speed or power, but it's just limiting the number of people that can use the e-bike. And I think a lot of it is less about safety and more about just pushing people into cars. If you look at how the laws are written, there's the things that would be more like common sense safety things for an electric bike in a city, or in this case a whole state, are just not talked about. It's just a way to kind of legislate them off the streets entirely. When you're not in the like automotive system anymore, like I've been pretty much out of it for a very long time, and when you first start biking, you first get your electric scooter and you're like whizzing around, you're like, this is so great, this is really amazing, and I'm like, this is so wonderful. And then honestly, after a while, that becomes kind of normal. And then I found that after you're out of that system for a long time, you just kind of realize that the system is really terrible. And I think a lot of the legislature, a lot of our culture is basically just kind of desperately keeping people in that system. That's how much money these companies would stand to lose, like that ubiquitous advertising and lawyers for, like ads for lawyers, ads for insurance, ads for car mats, is like Super Bowl ads. It's like such an industry. And if you get out of that, you can see how ridiculous it all really is. So I don't think most of our laws are written by legislators anymore. They're written by lobbyists, and I don't know which lobbyists are responsible, but I'm almost certain that some lobbying group is responsible for this legislation, not any safety committee or anybody who's like concerned about people's safety. If there's any legislation or any kind of project that will reduce traffic, kind of no matter what the circumstances are, anything that reduces traffic, like cities will spend millions of dollars to do studies of how to reduce traffic, and it is never implemented or half implemented. Adding a lane on a highway will make things worse, and everybody knows that, and everybody's known that for 20 years, and then it's done constantly still. At this point, it's obviously not that's not the goal. Reducing traffic is not the goal. Increasing traffic really is the goal.
You know, I mean, just here where we live, you know, we see a bike lane, but then we go further down on the same path, the bike lane disappears. You know, we go from a 3-foot wide lane down to maybe like 8 inches wide, you know. And I get it, you know, these roads are built for cars, and bike lanes are definitely an afterthought. You know, there are still people who think that bikes shouldn't be on the roads. You know, by law, it's like bikes and cars, you know, they share the roads.
The law itself in Connecticut is not very friendly to cyclists in that it mandates that you stay on the road at all times unless there's an obstruction, which studies show that you taking the lane and being in the middle of the road is a lot safer, especially if I'm going like 25 miles an hour. It's not like I'm holding up cars on these roads too much.
So part of the issue with feeling safe biking in the road, it comes down to speed, and it comes down to how closely you have to ride with cars. Having protected infrastructure is obviously the gold standard to making sure all of our infrastructure is safe and accessible to anyone who wants to use it. But that is a slow-going process. So often it is one major thoroughfare that is 4 to 6 lanes, and speeds are all going super fast, and there's no shoulders. There's nowhere that bikes or e-bikes are designed to be, and they're just kind of allocated to either riding on the sidewalk with pedestrians or riding on the road, which can be very terrifying. Not a lot of drivers are accustomed to driving with bikes and sharing the road in that way, and a lot of bikers very understandably don't want to put up with that risk. So the key to unlocking this ridership potential and actually getting people to be less dependent on their cars is to make networks that get to key destinations that are low stress for everyone. My litmus test is like, would I be okay? Would I feel safe if I had a kid on the back of my bike? Is that a trip that I would feel is worth making on a bike? And if it's not, then it's not a good connection. You don't just need protected bike infrastructure to make these low stress connections, because that can be hugely expensive to do, especially on these main thoroughfares. But there's a lot that communities can be doing on a quick build, lower costs scale of investment. Like in Burlington, we just lowered the downtown speed limit to 20 miles per hour. You can do traffic calming, like curb bump outs and speed humps that really get cars to respect the speed limit, or even go lower than the speed limit in these key areas. And it's less of a pivotal, transformative change than a protected bike lane would be. But those sorts of small changes do add up over time and change kind of the culture of the use of those roads, where people are suddenly realizing that it does feel safe to make that 2-minute journey down to the grocery store along these roads. And it just takes, honestly, the political will from your local elected officials to stand up and say, this is something our community prioritizes.
And they did it with a charge of dynamite, one wing at a time. Here goes the first wing. Here goes the other half of what hundreds of guys and dolls...
You know, we destroyed downtown areas that were full of charm and life and excitement, and they were just paved over to build super highways in the middle of cities. No one else has done this. Europe didn't do this. So what are the lessons? Historically, like let's demolish and rebuild again, as better things come along. And that got me to thinking that what infrastructure in most people's minds is like, well, we have this, let's use it. But that is a fallacy. It's called the sunken cost fallacy. Sunk costs are those things which you build and you kind of are committing to continue using, even though there's something better along the way. So if I gave you a treasure map, and on the treasure map X marks the spot, and you start digging, you go down a couple of feet, or and then I show you, oh, wait a minute, you got the map upside down, and I tell you that no, you've been digging in the wrong place. Now, the sunk cost fallacy says that, oh, wait a minute, I've already dug 3 feet, so might as well keep going because I've already committed to digging for 3 feet. And the fallacy of it is me agreeing with you that let's keep digging in the wrong place because we've dug so far. So yes, the United States has built its infrastructure over a century to accommodate the automobile, but if something better comes along, why not abandon it and build it again? I think we've done it twice over. Now, we've also done it with aviation. We've done it with shipping. Not anymore, right? So we were willing to toss all the investment we did in the shipping infrastructure and rebuild it according to containers. We did that for railroads. We did that for canals, and airports. Another story altogether, where we built on a whole new terminals and whole new infrastructure for that as well. So I don't think the United States is afraid of rebuilding itself. It's just a question of enough people realizing that there's a better alternative.